So Wayne, one of Indonesia's leading companies embroiled in a corporate governance scandal. What's going on?
Well, you know, Bumi Resources is the leading coal exporter in Indonesia, and they have a parent company listed in London. And a whistleblower has come to the parent company and said, look, there's something wrong with their books, so they're going to look into that. And unfortunately, it comes at the end of a long-standing, let's say, a spat between the shareholders. One of Indonesia's most prominent families, the Bakries, and Nat Rothschild, who I think you probably are familiar with from London.
Yes, absolutely. So how much of this, it seems to obviously come as a surprise to the shareholders in London.
Yeah.
Is this surprising that this Indonesian company is getting into trouble?
No, I think in Indonesia people aren't so surprised. I think what they were surprised is that people in London were so eager to buy the shares. This company has for years been involved in some very, very complex deals, usually involving high leverage. And so and oftentimes where shareholders didn't know what was happening with the asset itself, and they were very disappointed as minority interest holders. So to them, the fact that there's suddenly a surprise for London shareholders and a possible scandal really comes as no surprise whatsoever.
So it's a surprise that people are surprised, basically.
It's a surprise that people are surprised.
So, in a word, is Bumi in financial... How bad financial trouble are they in?
Bumi is pretty highly leveraged. I mean, again, it's a leading coal exporter, but the problem is that coal prices are falling. So that puts pressure. This comes at a really bad time for them in terms of the economic cycle. It wouldn't be any good. There was no good time for such a thing to happen. However, this makes it even harder for them because they do have incredibly high debt levels thanks to years of these sort of extremely high-flying deals. So their leverage is something like 8 times their equity. And now they may have trouble. They would make it over, say, a year with the cash and the cash they have coming in for coal. But if prices fall further, and then there's questions about the quality of their assets or whether they can actually lay hold of money they need, they may actually end up having to sell assets or raise equity, which they've said.
Yes, which is obviously further bad news for the shareholders in London.
Right, especially because they're also highly leveraged, remember.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But then, so the question then is, if you're looking at Indonesia as a foreign investor, does this make you think, oh, I need to be a bit more cautious about Indonesia than I was before?
It probably will give some people some pause, but it really shouldn't be connected to the Indonesia story. Bumi and the Bakri family have sort of operated in a separate sphere. They're incredibly, let's call them adept at raising money and creating all this leverage. And that's actually kind of uncharacteristic for Indonesia at this point. It used to be the case before 97. A lot of companies were doing this, and Bakri was an expert, the Bakri family. And after 97, when everything collapsed, now people are extremely hesitant about leveraging up, and they haven't been doing that. As a matter of fact, one of the complaints you hear in Indonesia when you're there is that companies really aren't borrowing enough and expanding enough, and that's holding the economy back a little bit.
So worry about Bumi, but don't worry as much about Indonesia.
There's plenty of other things to worry about in Indonesia. This isn't one of them.
Great.